Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Yes, I technically left my house to go see a movie tonight. No, I am not in my car. Fact of the matter is, folks, it is getting cold on the East Coast, and the car, after 3+ hours, 2.5 hour runtime, plus additional time in the theater, plus, the trailers, is really cold in the car. And it's also a Monday night, man. My Cowboys are on, if you couldn't tell. So I was like, let's do it inside, where it's warm and where I can have a television on, watching the terrible play by the Dallas Cowboys tonight. So let's not talk sports, man. Let's talk something the Seaman loves talking about, and that you guys love seeing the Seaman talk about, and that's movies. And today's movie, man, one I was jacked for. So jacked, I just recently watched the original, and I dug this remake, man. I mean, not everything in this movie works, but a lot of it does. And it is, I kind of take it akin to what Rob Zombie did with Halloween. The original Halloween that John Carpenter gave us, really, really good. Lots and lots of goodies in that movie. But left a lot of things to be explored that Rob Zombie then did. While making his own movie, right? Like, he was able to make his own film, pay tribute to the original, and dive into stuff that he wanted to dive into. And that's what Luca Guadagnino is doing with this remake. Aside from the characters, who he does credit, original writers, Dario Argento, who's also the director back then, but also, along with his writing companion, Daria Nicolodi. They get credit for the characters, but that's it. I think it's very purposeful that it's chosen that way, because outside of the characters, this movie is very different from the original. The original kind of more fantastical and more simplistic, and this one, like that Rob Zombie Halloween remake, really dives into some of the areas that the first movie doesn't touch on, and wants to find out all of the things that are going on behind the scenes. And I dug a lot of the stuff that Guadagnino was doing with that. So let's not waste any time, man. You're probably like, what are all these names that you're throwing out there, C-Man? Well, pull up a chair, take a seat. I'm getting ready to dive into the 2018 remake of Suspiria, directed by Luca Guadagnino, who is coming off of his Oscar run with Call Me By Your Name last year. And if you're looking for Call Me By Your Name, Suspiria is not the movie, man. This is, wow, man. Guadagnino goes to some places in this movie, man. He goes to some really dark, and horrific places. But all of them play pretty well. As I was saying, I think Guadagnino kind of builds off the original really well. The thing I loved so much about Darren Argento's movie was its simplicity. American girl comes to Germany to join this dancing boarding school. To learn dance. Weird stuff starts going on, and as you dive deeper, you find out that the dance academy is actually being run by a coven of witches. At the head of that coven, of course, is Madame Blanc. And in the Argento version, Madame Blanc is very straightforward. She just comes off very much like the head of a dance academy. But nothing nefarious or make you go, on her. Madame Blanc, in Luca Guadagnino's version, played by Tilda Swinton, certainly has you asking lots of questions right away, like, what are you? What is going on? Lots of witchy things in this movie happening frequently from the beginning to the end. That's one of the first drastic differences between the two movies, is that Guadagnino really dives in on the witches, whereas, Argento kind of had the witches there, but we didn't know they were witches. We know pretty early on, Guadagnino's playing out the fact that people know the original movie, and know that most of these characters are witches, and he doesn't shy away from that. And that's the other thing that he dives into with the story, is what is really going on with the witches. And we get, what's interesting is, like, I thought we got really decent setup, foundational story stuff in Argento's version, that didn't dive in real deep on the individual characters, but kind of gave you an idea of the structure. And really, I thought it was really important to see the original Suspiria before seeing this one. And it did. It really helped give me a base of understanding, as, Guadagnino kind of overlooks, or kind of bypasses quickly through some of the general details to dive into the individual characters. And what we find out ultimately is that there's a power struggle going on internally at the school between two of its head witches, Madame Marcos and Madame Blanc. Both, funny enough, being played by Tilda Swinton. She actually plays three characters in the movie. But there is a major power struggle between these two witches going on. And there's like some political play going on, but also some very witchy play going on. But that power struggle is kind of really the basis of what Guadagnino is trying to get to, I think, in this movie, which is the abuse of power, and how it can ruin things and how it's bad and should be stopped. There's a lot of that, in the general struggle to gain power and then how that power is used. And Tilda Swinton does a really good job playing both of these characters. One not really until the end of the movie, and then obviously Madame Blanc is throughout the whole movie, but plays the characters well, where the story kind of sets this up. And she's so good at playing these weird characters, man, where there's always something else going on with her, and her facial expressions are emoting, and her general delivery is really, really good. You can always kind of tell when something is going on with Madame Blanc based on what Swinton is doing. She kind of has, her face is so important to the storytelling that's going on there. So Guadagnino's got that going for him. But then, you have your main character in Susie Bannion, who, Jessica Harper played, I thought, wonderfully in the original. In this very dreamlike, like once she kind of gets the first spell cast on her, she's in a kind of woo type place most of the movie, and she plays it so, so well. Dakota Johnson is not that version of Susie Bannion. This version, she's an Ohio girl on the run, trying to get out of her old life, comes to Germany, and what we get from Dakota Johnson is really, really solid stuff. I thought she played Susie really, really well. It's hard to say anything without spoiling stuff. So what you can say is the general arc that Susie has in this movie is a constantly evolving arc. Her character is constantly changing, learning, and becoming, more than what she is at the beginning. And I think Johnson handles that really well as the dancing. The 2 years of work really paid off for Johnson, and the fact that the dance is so good in this movie, and she's doing most of it. She does have a dance double that steps in for intricate stuff that she couldn't do, but most of the time it's her. I mean, even when her hair is in her face, it's still Dakota Johnson, and that's important because it allows Guadagnino to do artistic things with the camera that some people might go, oh, well, that's probably cut that way so that you can get the stunt double in, and in reality, it's not. It's just cut that way because it's artistic, and Johnson being the focal point in a lot of the dance routines, very, very important to the authenticity of the film, and it plays really well. You can tell how much he puts into it, and the dance is so important. It's, again, one of the things that Guadagnino does. The other conversations he's having is this, idea of art and dance and storytelling and how all that can kind of blend together and what that can give you on the other end. And Johnson embodies that really, really well. And I love the use of dance, and like I said, it can kind of give you that conversation of what story is, and there are like some really legit dance conversations between Johnson and Swinton, and like what kind of story they're trying to tell. But then the dance is also really used to the advantage of the witches. It kind of pulls back into that. If you have a coven of witches running a dance school, shouldn't they be using the dance to do things? And the one thing that they are trying to do in this movie, the dance is part of that ritual. And the use of this kind of interpretive, modern artistic dance allows these movements that kind of feel almost like they are part of a ritual, and it builds gradually, right? Like you get to the main performance of the Volk, and you really kind of are like, oh man, to the point where you get to the finale, the stuff that's going on there, you're like, oh wow, you could see how the dancing was building to that sequence at the end. And I love that Guadagnino uses it in that way. One, because I'm a big fan of dance, so it was really awesome. There are two dance scenes that really pop. Like I said, the Volk full performance is amazing. But Johnson also has this other dance when she's kind of trying to get the lead in the Volk, and she performs a piece of it that's synced with another actress who's doing, a different kind of dance performance separately in a different room. And the way these two dances are linked visually, it's stunning from a dance perspective. And then what is going on with the person who's not Dakota Johnson is mind blowing and disturbing and creepy and visually haunting. And there's a lot of visually haunting stuff in this movie, but that stuff, it just works really well. And when you tie that into the Coven and what their goals are, it adds to the fact that you're in a dance school. So why not use that to elevate the material? I think Guadagnino does that really, really well. And like I said, all these things that are working, it's to give this more developed story of the Coven and getting to peel behind that curtain and see what's really going on. And by the time we get to the finale of this movie, wow, man. I mean, like I said, you get there's so many different wows in this movie. Like, you get these wows with some of the dance stuff, like that scene I just talked about. And you get this totally different wow of creepy terror, and he loves using the form of dance to talk about art and story, and the artistic vision of this movie is great. And that's the other thing too, right? Like the original Suspiria, and Argento's vision was so important to its success, and the style and things that he did in the movie. Guadagnino has a very specific style that does some things I think that are kind of nods of the cap, if you will. Especially the Technicolor aspect. The Technicolor aspect of the original Suspiria is so important to the colorizing and the colors that pop in that movie, that Guadagnino figures out a way to create this visual effect that kind of draws off that, or inspires, or makes you think of that. And the way in which he uses that visual effect really plays into the story in a way that elevates everything that Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton have going on. Then add on top of that is the other thing, a lot of the camera work was very inventive in the original. A lot of inventive camera work here, man. Guadagnino does these really fast zooms and drastic cuts out of nowhere, and just a very, very artistic, very, very, you see it, you're going to go, okay, I've seen Luca Guadagnino do that. And the camera work really pops. Some of the things that he does in the movie with the camera, I thought were really, really awesome. But the thing that made the first Suspiria so good, right, was that music, was the score that Goblin made. It really put you on the edge of your seat a lot. And the score here is also inventive and creative and different. But I dug, again, the score amplifies the creepiness and amplifies the dance sequences and amplifies especially the end of this movie, man. And the end of the movie, I think, is the thing that's going to make or break people. When you get to the end, and this is the last spot where you kind of get that artistic kind of reference to the original, where he really makes red pop big time. And that use of red is something that totally makes you go, oh yeah, that's something you can take from the original. And the way he uses red, and it's very distinct in the fact that it's the only color that he uses the way Argento kind of used reds and greens in the original. And it creates just this terrifying, unsettling end sequence that people are either going to be like, I dig this, or I don't dig this. And it's because of where it takes the character of Susie. Susie goes on a totally different path than what Argento's version of the movie did. And then this very drastic change, again, it really is talking to the overall story of the Coven and dives into things that we didn't get to do in the original. And I dug that. I thought that Guadagnino did a really good job of building off the original. So for this remake, I really enjoyed it, man. I thought, there were some things that you could shave out, but overall, I think what Guadagnino and Johnson and Tilda Swinton give in this movie really, really worked. So that's it, man. That's all the C-Man's got to say about the 2018 remake of Suspiria. And like I said, I wouldn't even call it a remake. It's more of an adaptation. Someone taking a story and adapting it into completely something new. And Guadagnino does that, I think, quite well. So that's it, man. That's all I've got to say. Now it's your turn, man. Did you see the new Suspiria? What did you like? What did you not like? If you'd seen the original, what things did you like that were kind of tips of the cap? things that you wish you maybe would have pulled more from the original. Did you like that he dove into stuff that Argento didn't dive into? Everything you're thinking about Suspiria 2018, hit it down below. If you haven't seen it, or you're going to go check it out, has the Seaman enticed you? I hope I have, man. If you're a horror fan, this movie is certainly right up there with all the other solid horror flicks we've been getting this year, so go check it out. As always, man, if you dig this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down, I am the Seaman, and I'm signing off. Peace.
What's up, everybody? Still sticking around? Well, why don't you go check out another video? Try clicking on this guy or this guy. And if you'd really like to help the Seaman out, hit that subscribe button over there. Peace!